He didn't scream when the belt hit his back. He smiled. That was the first time I realized something had broken inside my brother, and it wasn't the kind of break that bleeds. It was quieter, darker, like a mirror cracked from behind where no one sees until the reflection warps. I was 7. Ben was 11. Our house was silent, not quiet. Silent, like a church where something unholy had happened, but no one dared talk about it. He used to laugh, you know. That kind of laugh that makes a dog wag its tail and makes a cold mother raise an eyebrow. But something changed around his 10th birthday. He stopped laughing. He started watching. I remember waking up one night to find him sitting cross-legged on the floor of my room, staring at me. I asked what he was doing. He didn't answer. He just crawled out of the room like a shadow slipping back into the wall. We never used the word abuse in our house. It was always discipline. "You made me do this," Dad would say, breathing heavy, polishing the belt buckle like it was some family heirloom. Mom? She never said anything. Just turned up the volume on her shows until the screaming faded. But they did something to Ben, something deeper than bruises. They showed him that hurting was a form of control. And when he finally broke, he didn't shatter into tears. He transformed into something colder. It was the summer I turned 9. I was hiding in the hallway reading comics by flashlight when I heard a soft thud, then a muffled whimper. I followed it to Ben's closet, and there was our dog, tied up, bleeding, gagged, shaking. Ben sat beside it like he was watching TV. "I'm training him," he said. "Why is he bleeding?" "He bit me." "Dad says that's disrespect." I untied the dog. I wanted to scream, run, tell someone, but I didn't, because I knew if I told, he'd do it to me next. When you grow up in a home like that, silence becomes a survival instinct. Ben learned to be the predator. I learned to be invisible. I never raised my voice, never broke a plate. I moved like smoke, hoping I'd disappear completely. But no matter how quiet I got, there were nights I could still hear his footsteps outside my door. I started pushing my dresser against it before bed. One night, that wasn't enough. It was a Sunday. Mom and Dad were out. Ben came into my room. "Let's play," he said. "I'm tired." His voice dropped. "Get up." When I tried to run, he grabbed me, pinned me, one hand on my throat, the other whispering words into my ear I still can't erase. "You're soft, you're weak, you need to learn." And in that moment, I saw my father in his eyes. Something snapped. Not in him, in me. For the first time in my life, I screamed. Loud. Ben froze. Then ran. And that's when I realized the cycle doesn't break itself. Someone has to set fire to it. That someone was going to be me. After that night, something inside me refused to go back to being invisible. I started noticing things I used to ignore, like how Ben's hands would tremble before dinner, how his knuckles were always raw, like he'd been punching walls, or himself. And then I began writing things down. Every bruise, every threat, every look he gave me that felt like a loaded weapon. I wrote them in a notebook I kept under the floorboard. Not because I wanted to expose him, but because I was afraid I'd forget how real it was, how bad it could get. The violence changed. It became quieter, psychological. He started playing mind games, moving things in my room, whispering lies into our parents' ears, gaslighting me until I started questioning my own memory. He'd say things like, "I never touched you, you're paranoid," or "You're making things up again, just like Mom does when she's off her meds." I didn't even know our mom was on meds. But that's how he worked, with precision, with calculation. He didn't need to use fists anymore. He had mastered something worse, manipulation. And no one believed me, because Ben was good. He brought home perfect grades. He volunteered at church. He was everyone's favorite altar boy. But I knew the truth. So I started recording. Audio mostly. Slipped an old recorder under my bed. captured the things he whispered when the lights went out. Things like, "Tomorrow, I'll teach you how to be numb." Or, "You'll thank me someday." Sometimes I'd replay the tapes to remind myself I wasn't crazy, but sometimes I couldn't tell who was crazier, him for saying it, or me for letting it go on so long. Then came the night that everything changed. He brought a girl home. Her name was Sophie. 16, eyes like storm clouds. She laughed a lot, but not like she meant it. I heard them through the wall. Laughter, then silence, then something that didn't sound right. I pressed my ear to the wall. Her voice. Then, stop. Then a scuffle. A loud thud. I didn't hesitate. I ran to their room, kicked open the door. Ben stood over her, his hand clenched around her wrist. Her eyes wide, terrified, like mine had been. He looked at me, dead calm. "She's being dramatic," he said. But Sophie wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was frozen. Like prey. And in that moment, I realized something bone deep. He was no longer just broken. He was dangerous. So I took the notebook, the audio, and I made a choice that night that would unravel everything. I went to the police. They didn't believe me at first, but then I played the tape. Ben was arrested 2 days later. Not for hurting me, but for what he did to Sophie. It was enough to open the investigation. Enough to let them dig. And what they found buried in our house, it made my skin crawl. A hidden folder under his mattress. Photos, drawings, dark things. A journal filled with detailed entries, not of what he did, but what he wanted to do. It read like a horror novel, except I was in some of the entries. So was Sophie. So were others. He never touched them. But he thought about it every day. And that was enough. They sent him away. Not to prison, to a psychiatric facility. The headlines were tame. Local teen diagnosed with dissociative behavior. No one used the word abuser. No one called him a predator, but I knew. I had lived it. And now I was left to pick up the pieces of my family, of myself, of the boy I used to call my brother. But that wasn't the end, not even close. Because trauma doesn't vanish with an arrest. And cycles don't shatter just because you scream. No, sometimes the cycle breaks in whispers, in midnight shakes, in therapy sessions where you can't speak without trembling. But if you're willing, if you fight long enough, you can build something new out of the wreckage. And that's what I tried to do. People think when the abuser is gone, the house becomes quiet again. But quiet doesn't mean peace. It means echoes. I couldn't sleep in my room for weeks. Every creak of the floorboard felt like a memory. Every shadow looked like him coming back. Even though I knew he couldn't. Even though I had the court papers to prove it. But healing isn't logical. It's personal. It's raw. It's slow. The hardest part wasn't what he did to me. It was what I almost became because of it. There were moments, months later, when I felt myself slipping. I'd lose my temper too fast. I'd stare too long at people who irritated me. I started fantasizing about control, about what it would feel like to have someone fear me the way I had feared him. That scared me more than anything he ever did, because I understood then how the cycle works. Abuse plants a seed. Silence waters it. Fear gives it roots. And if no one pulls it out, it grows. And grows. Until someone else gets hurt. I started therapy at 17. The first few sessions, I just sat there, didn't say a word. The therapist didn't push me. She just waited. Week by week, I opened up. Not all at once, just fragments. I used to sleep with a chair against the door. My brother smiled when he was hit. I think he was becoming our father. I think I was too. One day she asked, "Do you believe you broke the cycle?" And I said, I screamed. That was all. Because in our house, screaming was rebellion. It was truth. It was defiance in a language no one had dared to speak. She nodded. Wrote something down. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a survivor. No, more than that. I felt like a witness. I had seen evil, lived beside it, been touched by it, but I didn't let it live inside me. Chose different, I chose harder, I chose healing. Years passed, Ben remained. Institutionalized, no one visited him, not even our parents. Mom drank herself into forgetfulness. Dad vanished into a second. Family, I stayed. I studied psychology, graduated, became the very thing we never had growing up, a safe space. And then, one day, I got a letter from him, 5 pages, front and back, written in handwriting that looked nothing like his. He apologized, not for what he did, but for what he didn't do. He wrote, "I should have protected you. I should have told someone when he first hurt me. I should have let myself cry." Then this line, "You screamed. You did what I never could, and that saved both of us." I read that line 100 times, because deep down I'd hated him, resented him, feared him, but never understood him, until that letter. He wasn't born a monster. He was made into one, and if monsters can be made, then maybe they can be unmade too. I never wrote back. I didn't need to. I had already broken the cycle, and some endings don't need closure. They just need distance, and light, and time, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose not to pass on the pain that was passed to you, and if you're watching this, maybe it's your turn now, to scream, to speak, to break what broke you, not with fists, but with truth, because the truth hurts, but it also heals, and if you let it, it can set you and everyone after you free. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.